My name is Chris Mattia. My amateur radio call sign is Whiskey 6 Alpha Hotel. This is WaveTalkers Live, episode number 44. Today, I'm joined by my esteemed colleagues, David W0DHG, Dan NR6V, and we have our special guest today, Oliver K6OLI, who is going to be joining us today as well. We're going to be talking about the Great Shakeout today and how you can participate in that. And so as we get started with this, let's quickly jump into the check-in. So let me go ahead and unpin all of the rest of the guys. We'll do it the super sneaky way here by simply removing the spotlight from me and then re-adding my spotlight to replace it. There we go. And so if you have access to Winlink, go ahead and send in a Winlink check-in. Send it to all three of us. Our call signs are W0DHG, NR6V, W6AH, and our tactical call sign, WaveTalkers. Today's question is, are you planning to participate in the Great Shakeout on 1020 at 1020? So that's the question, and let's go ahead and jump over to the PC here. I'll pull the slides down. We'll jump over to that. And we'll actually, if I leave me on, pull the slides off and then put me down in the corner, that's much easier to follow. Let me move the microphone a little out of the way so it's a little bit easier to see. So if you have access to Winlink, go ahead and send in a Winlink check-in. You do that by opening Winlink. Go ahead and click on the new message button. It's going to pop that up. And then you're going to click the little drop down, or click the little button here that says select template. Go ahead and give that a click. And you're going to click the little plus next to standard templates. Come down here to where it says mapping GIS forms. Go ahead and give that a click. It's going to spring this section open. Winlink check-in is the one that you're looking for. Just go ahead and give that a double click. And if the demo gods are with you, it should open up your web browser of choice, and it should go ahead and pre-populate this Winlink check-in form. This is the form you want to use. Regardless of if you have saved your form or not, you always want to click on this upper left corner, this one that says time and date. Go ahead and give that a click. And when you do, what it does is it sets the current date and time according to your computer right here in the form so that you know you're always up to date. So go ahead and select OK for that. This is going to be an exercise, and you're going to come over here and tell us what band you're connecting with. I'm going to leave mine selected to NA, because I'm going to send this via the internet, via Telnet. Select the mode that you're operating with. In this send to right here, this is where you want to plug in all three of our call signs, W0DHG, NR6V, W6AH, and our tactical call sign, WaveTalkers. Go ahead and type that in right there. This is the call sign of any of the operators that are there with you. So I know some of you are watching with a fellow ham there. Go ahead and put both of your call signs in. We'll have both of you listed in the check-ins. Station contact and your own call sign. You're going to come down here for location, fill in the location where you're currently at. The GPS coordinates, this is the really important one to make sure that you get in here. Now, if you don't have a GPS connected, don't worry about it. It should automatically fill this in for you based on the center of your grid square that you filled inside of the settings for Winlink. Down here, this is the comment section. This is where you want to answer our question today, which is, are you planning to participate in the Great Shakeout on 1020? Just go ahead and give all of that a quick fill out. Hit the submit button. It will ask you if you want to change the name of this form. It's a new feature that they added recently inside of Winlink. You can leave that as it is. You don't need to change that. When you finish that, it should go ahead and populate this message for you. And you can just come up here and just select post to outbox, and then go ahead and send and receive that message like you would any other Winlink message. I'm going to hit the open session button, hit the start button, and let's see if we've got any check-ins coming in. And it looks like we do have check-ins coming in from the first one coming in from Roland in Germany. So thank you for joining us there. We've also got check-ins coming in from all over the place. We'll go ahead and download those now. And when we get to the end of the show, what we'll do is we will all check back in on this, and we'll see where everyone is coming in from, and we'll put everybody up on the map. So before we get any further, I wanted to give you a quick little recap from last week Last week, we talked about Jamboree on the Air, or JOTA for short. And yesterday, the WaveTalkers crew went out and we did a JOTA activation with some local scouts. We had Cub Scouts and we had Boys and Girl Scouts all there, and we got them on the air, and they used a variety of different methods of getting on the air. We had loop antennas, we had a hex beam set up, we had a long wire antenna, we did VHF communications, they did a transmitter hunt while they were there. The first Cub Scout, the first scout who got on the air in the morning, got in on HF. They were using the hex beam, and the very first contact of the day that they made was with Lithuania. It was a station in Lithuania. So a Cub Scout got to talk to Lithuania. And it was really fun because I asked the kid afterwards, I'm like, hey, do you know where Lithuania is? And he looked at me, he goes, that's just north of Ukraine, right? I was like, yes, very good. Good job. So great job for the scouts. We had a lot of scouts who earned their radio merit badge yesterday, and everybody had a great time. And we also had Logan, who joins us here on the calls regularly, came out and joined us for a little while during the day as well. So thanks, Logan, for coming out and joining us as well from the show. So with that, that's kind of all I have for today. Today, we're going to be talking about the Great Shakeout, and I'm from the East Coast, so I've only ever operated with the Great Shakeout one time, and that was last year. So I'm still pretty new at this whole earthquake thing and kind of what it is and how it works. So we asked Oliver K6OLI to join us. So let me bring Oliver up to stage, and I'm just going to get out of the way and let you kind of take over here for a while and tell us, maybe introduce yourself, and then just kind of like go into it.
I'll do that. Thank you so much, Chris, and thank you so much to the WaveTalkers for having me. I'm very excited to be here and be talking with all of you, hopefully, about Shakeout and what it means. First off, let me change my view here into gallery view. Just a quick show of hands. How many of you have actually experienced an earthquake? Just show of hands. A lot of California. Quite a few of you have. All right. Good.
Got some virtual hands there.
Yeah, thank you so much. I see the virtual hands there as well. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. For those of you who haven't experienced an earthquake, the idea that the ground is moving is just mind-boggling. I've experienced earthquakes, small ones. The largest one I've experienced, luckily not near the epicenter, and I think for most of us in SoCal that's true, is Ridgecrest. And with Ridgecrest, for those of you who remember, the second earthquake, there were two earthquakes, one on the 4th of July, one on the Friday evening following that. Tron works for the Southern California Earthquake Center. We were actually on a call with the earthquake clearinghouse, which was located at the time in Ridgecrest, and had all these organizations trying to figure out what information can we get from the previous earthquake. And the earthquake hit live while we were on that call. And you could hear the other people say, get under the table, quick. And then we knew that was our advance warning, right? We were on that call. And then we just sat down and we waited for the rolling to start, knowing that we were far enough away. One of the things you do with earthquakes when they start is you start counting very slowly. 1, 2, 3, and that's a great trick I learned from Kate Hutton, right, who was the earthquake lady, as sometimes they were called. She brought a lot of calmness to LA County during earthquakes. And if you get up to 30, then you know it's a big earthquake. We counted at that speed to 38 while it was rolling. So earthquakes for us are real. They're all around us, all in California, and today I'll show you some other places too. But also they're great trigger event, and we'll talk about what I mean by that. And what I'll say today will be focused on what volunteer radio groups can do to prepare not just for earthquakes, because let's face it, our responses are pretty much the same no matter what the event is, whether it's an earthquake, a tsunami, a tornado, or any other cyber attack. We're there to bridge the gap, the information communications gap that exists in the first, let's say, 72 hours after an event, until the professionals and the military and the other aid groups can come in and rebuild our world, if you will. So let's go straight into that was a prologue. Let's go straight into the talk today. And I've got I have a couple of slides here, not too many. And I'll move the videos to my left. So every time I look this direction, you know I'm actually looking at your videos, seeing where they're still awake. You know, if you're falling asleep, snore loudly, that way I'll go faster. All right, cool. All right, today will be about the ShakeOut exercise coming up on October 20th for volunteer radio groups. I like that term. And if there's one thing you take away from this talk today, then it's to practice communication skills, your communication skills, for ShakeOut 2022 with Winlink. Did you feel it? That's the one thing you should come away with as we're talking. So practice communication skills for ShakeOut 2022 with your Winlink. Did you feel it? Let's do a little background on this. As I just mentioned, for volunteer radio groups, the mode of operations after an event, whether it's a hurricane, tornado, etc., is almost always identical. There's not a big difference. I lived in Florida for 10 years. You know, I've been through quite a few hurricanes. Quite frankly, what you have is one, you've got a trigger event. And for planned events like ShakeOut, that can be the ShakeOut. Or you have an earthquake, something that disrupts communications, but there's some form of trigger event, right? Then you conduct a situational survey. The first thing you do after, you know, you looked after your own safety is what's going on around me. In our case with earthquakes, I usually do a survey. We live in an apartment complex. I do a survey of the apartment complexes there. Gas leaks, what's the water situation, etc. Takes me about 14 minutes. I do that on a regular basis whenever we do exercises like this. So you do some form of situational survey. Same for tornadoes, same for hurricane. What was going on? What's going on in my neighborhood? Are my neighbors safe? Is my family safe? What's going on? So you have an idea of what's actually going on. And then, of course, you move into response. And that can usually be anywhere between half an hour, 12 hours, 24 hours, depending on what your organization, what your radio group, volunteer radio group is planning on doing and practicing. So in this case, what we have is we've got ShakeOut as a trigger event. Then we'll go into the survey and then we'll go into this response. And one of the surveys, not the only survey, but one of the surveys is a Did You Feel It report. And we're sending that to United States Geological Survey. And we encourage everybody to do that. So pop quiz, hotshots. When the ground shakes, what do you do? What do you do first? Give everybody about 30 seconds. You can pop it in the chat if you want to. And quick survey here. How many of you say run for the door? All right, good job, everybody. Drop, cover, and hold on, right? And if you've ever seen videos, not a lot of people actually do that, but I want to really drive that home. The first duty you have in an earthquake, tornado, or anything else is to protect yourself, because you're not going to help anybody if you have a 2x4 sticking out of your head. Right? If you're injured, if your legs are broken, first thing you do is you drop, you cover, you hold on. And then you take care of your family and your immediate neighborhood, but you drop, you cover, and hold on. Why? Because your survivability is so much higher. And there is this myth around, you know, the doors and whatnot. The doors will swing very violently and can inflict heavy damage on you. So your best option is to find a very sturdy table, not a glass table, a very sturdy table. Can be wood, can be laminate, plastic, whatever, but very sturdy table, and just really do that. Please keep that in mind. For those of you who are traveling to earthquake country, may not live in earthquake country, there's nothing wrong. And people sometimes say, well, it looks stupid being underneath that table. Well, yeah, you know what looks even dumber? Being flattened by a wall, you know. You won't care at that point, but you know, I think I'd rather look silly under the table and protect it, because you're doing this for yourself, for your family, and your community. Because after that, you can crawl out, grab your go back, and become a radio operator and bring the communications back, because chances are they will be disrupted. So when people think about earthquakes, many of us think of California, right? Some of them remember that Oregon has quite a few earthquakes as well. And then Seattle, for those of you who live in the beautiful state of Washington, earthquakes are all over. But understand that pretty much all of the Western United States has a lot of earthquakes. And high hazard, it lives in hazard country, right? As well as Hawaii here. Very many earthquakes in large part because it's an active volcano. So they do get the earthquakes because of that. But here's the thing, not a lot of people know there's also high hazard. There are also high hazard areas in the Eastern United States. The New Madrid fault line, for example, has generated some of the most devastating earthquakes. And as Chris and I talked about when we talked about this on Friday, you can feel these earthquakes over large swaths of the Eastern United States. So if you live in any of these hazard areas, maybe start thinking about earthquake response. It may not come as often as they do for us on the West Coast, but when it does come, it will be a challenge for everybody involved because a lot of people don't expect that. So please keep that in mind. And also our friends in Alaska here, we can talk about our friends in New Zealand who are very, very familiar with earthquakes. And I didn't put in the slide about the Ring of Fire, but New Zealand, Japan, every place along the Ring of Fire, Latin America, the entire West Coast is prone to earthquakes. Keep that in mind. Also, Did You Feel It is not restricted to the United States. It's an international service, international feature. So you can report it to USGS internationally. You can also look at it internationally and sometimes get a really good sense of where earthquakes are happening. One of the great things about participating in Great California Shakeout for groups is they get you a certificate of participation. We find the agencies and hospitals we work with really like that because it gives them a show. And so a proof that you've done something for the community. And I think that's a really nice thing. So I do recommend everybody registering. Chris will pop in the Shakeout registration link for everybody. But that's a really nice thing about participating. And also make sure you register. Just picking up the certificate may not be enough, right? So be on the website. So let's talk about how the trigger event moves us into survey and response, right? So we want to survey and we want to respond with Winlink. That's really the goal here. Very typical for us in LAX Northeast is, and you can see this here, this was our Shakeout setup at Huntington Hospital, one of, I think, 8 hospitals that we were supporting that day. We set up the way we expect to operate during an actual earthquake. It doesn't help us sitting at home as amateur radios, volunteer radio groups, as amateur radio operators, and imagining what we could do. Unless you test yourself in the field often, you do not know what works, what doesn't work. The situation is never ideal. In this case, you can see I popped up this antenna. I just connected it where I could fit it. And it worked really well. The HF antenna worked well. I had the 2 meter, 70 centimeter antenna hanging from the same post. There wasn't any issue with that. But we tried that out. As you can see, we brought our solar panels, right? How many of you know the song, It Seems It Never Rains in Southern California? Well, it did at ShakeOut 2021. So those are things that you don't necessarily plan for as often as you should, but it does happen. So these things you want to test. Does your equipment hold up when you're doing this? Are your cables protected? Are they waterproof? Those are things that you only learn from actually deploying. One of the first things we do in any earthquake in the LA area, and that, you know, I also want to include Ventura, San Diego, and they're doing all fantastic work in our area, is we do send out a Did You Feel It report, both for exercises like Shakeout, but also for real event. We've had a couple of earthquakes in the last 2 years, and we had on Winlink alone 40 to 60 Did You Feel It reports. That's a big deal. People may say, well, it's not that many given that they get thousands. Yes, but if regular communication, cell phones, internet, and so on go down for whatever reason, those are 40 to 60 reports that can still get outside and really give a picture of what's going on to the USGS and ground truths. So the responses for USGS, and we'll go through that as we're doing this. This is the form, snapshot of the top of the form, the Did You Feel It form in Winlink. And we're talking a little bit about it more later. But this form is an exact replica of the form you get on the internet, on the USGS website. It produces the same tags. It feeds into the same database and more. The and more part is really important. And let me point out a couple of differences, and we'll keep circling back to that. One is, in Winlink, you have an exercise option. That exercise option does not exist on the web form. So that's unique to Winlink. So you have an exercise option. You also have an exercise ID, or if you click on the real event, and I'll show you that on the actual form, a real event ID that you can put in there. And that's very different from the online form. And you got the Did You Feel It? Just like the online form, you got the time of the earthquake required, and you can fill that in. And the other thing that the form does automatically is it fills in the USGS Did You Feel It email automatically. And lastly, you have a latitude longitude field, which you also don't have on the web, which is unique to Winlink. So what happens here is you fill out this form, and there are more questions after that. You'll see that during the live. You fill out the form, you fill in your observations. If you did not feel it and it was an earthquake in your area, please also submit a did not feel report, because those are really important to USGS to establish the boundaries of the shaking. It's really good information. But if you did feel it, you click on yes, you fill it out. And from then on out, from there, you send it. And once you send it, once it hits into the internet, it makes it to USGS within 30 seconds to 2 minutes. And it'll show up on the USGS community internet intensity maps on the website, right? And from there on, it's being mapped. On the right here, you see information. These were all generated only by amateur radio operators. USGS actually produced this as a proof of concept map. And every dot here you see was at least one operator, radio operator, if not more. So the information you send, whether it's exercise or real event, is processed by the USGS directly as they receive it. But there's another side to the Winlink form of this, and you don't get that off the web either. You can actually take the same form, because it produces a form data, and you can provide a local response map. So you can aggregate the information locally and map them within Winlink, or export them to QGIS, ArcGIS, Google Maps, whatever GIS product you're working with. And that thinking came out of, for a long time we were thinking, well, what happens? We had this form that sends information to USGS, but if we don't have internet, we can't access the website. Well, the mapping that Phil and Greg worked on really, really hard to put into Winlink makes this possible. So you can have a quick survey, quick overview over what's going on around you. In this case, I highlighted every area that had intensity higher than 6 with orange. And so you can filter for that too. And most of you will be familiar with the filtering from previous talks on the WaveTalkers, right? But in this case, we could look almost immediately, well, there are problems here in Simi Valley. Santa Monica seems to be hard hit. There seem to be areas in San Diego where the intensity was really high. Understand that professionals look at this from with the same lens. They're saying, well, if they've experienced the highest intensity shaking, maybe that's where we should look first. And that is one of the main reasons why we encourage everybody, every volunteer radio group, every amateur radio operator to participate and practice this. You can be the eyes and the boots on the ground. You can provide ground truths, not just for Did You Feel It, but in this case, specifically for Did You Feel It, to people who make the decisions on where the aid is applied. And that is a true power of amateur radio. So let's talk a little bit about the goals for exercises, and then I want to get into kind of the practical sides of this. The critical information on Did You Feel It that USGS wants to know is the exercise. Is it an exercise or real event? Makes sense, right? Do we have to really worry about that? The event ID, and that's easy to fill in. And I would like to point out a couple of things when we go through it live. If it's an exercise, you get to make up your own event ID. There are a couple of things that make life easier, but it makes it really easy for the USGS when they get an exercise with an event ID or an exercise ID to say, okay, these were all part of the same exercise. We did that for our SoCal Shifting 2022 exercise, and it made it really easy for USGS to put all those reports together and analyze them. And they do run data models and so on and test different models. So it's really, really useful to know the event ID. If you know the event ID because you've gotten a notification for a real earthquake, by all means, pop that in. That way they know exactly which earthquake you're referring to. Then the next question is, did you feel it? Yes or no? The yes, you'll fill out the entire form. Make sure that you give them the ground truths as you've experienced them. No, if it wasn't your area, obviously in California, if there's an earthquake in Hawaii, we wouldn't fill that out because it's very unlikely that we'd feel that. But if it was in your area, let's say in Simi Valley or San Diego, I would go in and fill out and say, no, I did not feel it. That gives USGS data on, okay, it wasn't felt in that area. And as Chris pointed out, on the East Coast, sometimes you can feel earthquakes, even mid-size, medium strength earthquakes, hundreds and hundreds of miles. It's a different geology out there. The date and the time of the event, that's really important. That's both for exercise and for real. Again, you don't have to be down to the second, but if you experienced the earthquake, let's say 10 minutes ago, make sure that you put in the correct time. That helps also USGS to ascribe your report to the proper event, right? They want to match that. They want to align that. And then your full street address. So please, that was one of the things that came out of ShakeOut 2021. And our contacts at USGS said, well, we did have about 20 reports that only gave us the street address. And just to give you an example, 1234 Main Street exists in more than one town in the United States. So please do include your street address, your town, your state, and bonus points if you add your zip code, right? So I would definitely include all of that, your street address, your town, your state, and your zip code. So thank you so much. If they did have a latitude, longitude, they use that in addition to that, but please, your full street address should be on everything. And then, of course, any observations and comments. It's surprising how useful comments have been to USGS. They actually read those and they go through them, they aggregate them, and they understand, wow, this is additional information that we didn't capture. So they're really appreciative. In our case, we very often add in how we sent the information. Was it via HF? Was it via FM, via gateway? You know, is there any additional information that may not be on the form? Ideally, your response time is under 60 minutes. Why? Because the pager, which is a subscription product the USGS puts out for EOCs, companies, governments, etc., the first one usually goes out within 75 minutes of the event. And that tells them exactly, this is where the damage is. This is where the shaking was the greatest. So if you can get that in within 60 minutes, more power to you. That's one of the goals we usually have. But understand that for ShakeOut, we all have jobs, you know, we're all working, we all have families. If you send it anytime on 1020, by all means, go ahead and do that, right? And then for the local response, I want to point that out. It is absolutely critical that you put in a latitude and a longitude. Why? Because Winlink itself will not map from the street address. It will only map from the latitude, longitude. So without a latitude, longitude, you will not show up on the Winlink map. So you won't have a local report. USGS will have the proper information, but your exercise coordinator, your local EOC, your hospital, whoever you're working with will not have your report mapped within Winlink. They still get the report, but it won't be mapped. All right. So let's go with that same information. Number one, is it an exercise or real event? Number two, the optional exercise ID. For the ShakeOut, it'll be ShakeOut 2022. For today, we'll do something slightly different for the practical parts. Did you feel it? Yes or no? Again, we talked about what the reason there is. On 1020, this is what you're going to fill in, 10/20/2022, and the time at 10:20 a.m., so 10:20 in the morning, and this is always 24-hour time, so in the afternoon would be 15:20, you know, you were doing a different event, but in this case, it'll be 10:20, and the times are always local. So if you're on the East Coast or if you're in New Zealand, use 10:20 local time on 10:20 local time. Don't try to adjust it for California time or US time at all, because The adjustment all happens on the USGS side, and they're perfectly fine with having waves of different events for an exercise. So please feel empowered to do that and empower your groups to do that. So it's absolutely no issue. Your location, in this case, I've given you a good example of what an address looks like. And that goes for international addresses. Just put in your international address the way you would put it on a letter. USGS actually has a service that parses the information. So any kind of postal address can be parsed to a latitude, longitude, or in their case, very often a zip code. So that's totally acceptable. In this case, I've used 4016 Mount Lee Drive, which is the location of the Hollywood sign, by the way. Los Angeles, California, 90068. And then the latitude, longitude, I put in the same information down to 4 decimals. Do we have a question? No? All right, cool. So latitude, longitude, 34.1340. And in the Western Hemisphere, remember that longitude is negative number. So it's minus 118.3238 for the Hollywood sign. And that's your report. Then we'll go through the questions together live and, then answer any questions you might have. The other thing that I wanted to point out is for the local reports, you can actually capture report data with Winlink CSVs. And this is a very often overlooked feature of Winlink. And I strongly encourage everybody to play with this. It is very powerful. It works with any mappable form, GIS mappable form within Winlink. So what that does, it creates a report that you can export then to third-party GIS programs like Google Maps, Google Earth, ArcGIS, QGIS, and many, many more formats. CSVs are universally applicable. Also, there are certain forms like bed availability and so on. You can actually export into your Excel, LibreOffice, OpenOffice spreadsheet, Google Sheets software, and create wonderful looking dashboards, or use the information to provide filters, etc. So please, I would encourage everybody who's a group coordinator to start looking into the Winlink CSVs and working with them. They're extremely powerful. All righty. So what's the one thing we wanted everybody to come away with today? So practice communication skills during ShakeOut 2022 with Winlink. Did you feel it? And I hope I took some of the fear out of it. And we'll test that right now, because what we'll do is actually do a practical exercise, right? There's some more additional information. We do have an easy Winlink Did You Feel It exercise. If you want to, afterwards, we can take a look at it together. And we have it as a as a web version, as well as a doc version for coordinators, so you can customize it to your own group. But so far, so good. Let's do an actual exercise. Is that okay, Chris? Hello?
Works for me.
Did I put you to sleep?
Yeah, absolutely. That is. I have to get over to where the mute button is. Yes, please. Yeah, let's walk through doing a setup. Do you want to share your? Yeah, you got your screen up. So go ahead and just walk us through how to find the form, where the form is, all the how to fill it out, and we really do want everybody on the call to go ahead and fill one of these out. We're gonna do this as an exercise, as a WaveTalkers exercise right now. And send it in. Make sure you're sending it into the WaveTalkers tactical call sign. That way we get a copy of it and we can map it and we can see how this is working around the world together. So go ahead, Oliver, walk through it for us, please.
Thank you so much, Chris, and thanks for posting the links. And I'll just put the CC information in the chat right now. VCC.
We'll also do the VC comms address also.
Yeah, see, that should be right. It's WaveTalkers. There's an S there. Alex, perfect.
And LAX Northeast. And did you feel it? So yeah, so all three of us will get the form results, so we can all map this exercise.
Alrighty. So let me invite everybody to start your Winlink Express. Let's give everybody a minute here, and we'll do some preparatory work here. Let me give this a chance to load. Where does Winlink get its GPS information from? Let me talk about this for a second. except for the did you feel it form where we're kind of saying either there has to be a GPS present or you have to enter it manually. Most forms get the information from Winlink Express. So if you don't have anything filled in here in the position report, it takes the center of your grid square. What we do encourage everybody to do is to get a simple GPS dongle, especially if you're working outside, and connect that. In this case, I've got it connected via TCP. The other option is you can enter your latitude, longitude manually here, right? Then click enter. And if you have no GPS position, it'll actually use that information, but we can update this here, right? And that will then be used in your forms. I think that's more productive. It is your responsibility as the operator to make sure that this information is available, right? You don't have to do anything else. Once you have this set, you can just close this window. But that's where the information, the GPS information will come from if you've entered it, right? The more precise you are, the more useful this is. So that's just to start. All right, let's start a new message. And I clicked here on the new message button. And if I go too fast, just let me know. Then we go to select template, go to standard templates. And then here we've got the USGS forms. We have it in Spanish, we have it in English. And just double click on the USGS "Did you feel it" text. Everybody with me so far? Is anybody not there? Let's put it this way.
You'll oftentimes hear this report referred to as the DYFI. So if we ever slip into that slang language of saying DYFI, that's what we mean. Did you feel it?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Chris. And that's, again, we shouldn't be, as emergency communicators, we shouldn't be using abbreviations, but we tend to do that. I'm the first to admit to that. Quick one thing I wanted to point out here. So right now, exercise is selected as default. If you have a real earthquake, take a breath before you fill this out. Remember to click on the real event, and then you can actually look up the USGS event ID and enter that if you want to. This is completely optional. You don't have to, but it helps, right? In this case, we're doing exercise. And what I would invite everybody to do is to go and type in WaveTalkers. Did I spell that correctly? Yeah. We'll do optional exercise ID WaveTalkers. Is that okay with you, Chris?
That's perfect.
Outstanding. Then we'll scroll down and we'll go through it bit by bit. And we'll say, yes, we felt this earthquake. Let's assume we had an earthquake at 1330 hours, or whatever 7 minutes ago is in your local time zone, right? Click on did you feel it? Yes. The date was today. You can click on the date. You could change this, right? On the 20th, we could do it on the 20th, but today is the 16th. So 10/16, and this is the American way of writing it, right? So it's not starting with a day, month. It's actually the opposite. It's month, day, year. Click OK. And then in this case, we can click on the time. Let's say the earthquake was at 1330, right? 1:30 p.m., 1330 in 24-hour format. Give everybody a moment to catch up. Click OK. Now for the street address, we've got a ton of options here. I'll just put in Arlington Garden because that's what the latitude and longitude here are referring to. And that also is parsable. So if you have a landmark that shows up on Google Maps, chances are it can be viewed. So I've actually added Huntington Hospital as the location, and it actually parsed this, right? So it's relatively easy. In my case, this information has been filled in. Why? Because we turned on the GPS, right? So you can still click on here and make manual changes. You can manually overwrite this information, right? I'm going to leave it as is right now. There are a couple of ways you can look up your latitude, longitude. Pretty much every cell phone these days has an app, either Google Maps or Apple Maps, where you can look it up directly in the map. There are apps that can do that for you, where you click on it and it uses the GPS. And even if your system doesn't have a GPS, it can estimate where you are based on your Wi-Fi. So strongly recommend that you get used to finding your latitude, longitude. It may just save your life, right? And 4 decimals is enough. That's about a 10-meter square. So that works out just perfectly. Let's fill this out together. Let's say we had a mid-strength earthquake, right? a moderate earthquake. And let's say we're all inside a building because we're watching Oliver talk, right? I'm not offended if you say you slept through this or if you woke up. But in this case, were we asleep? I say no, because I was talking. Did others nearby feel it? Everyone felt it. We were all in the same call, right? How would you describe the shaking? It was very strong shaking. How did you react? And for those of you who've heard me talk about this before, I call this the macho question. If you don't want to answer that, please use the not specified or just don't answer it. You don't have to answer any of these questions. Everything here is voluntary, right? You can say no reaction, not felt, very little reaction if you want to. If you were frightened, there's no shame in that. And by the way, women don't have a problem with this question. To them, it's just a data point and they move on with life. Guys, for some reason, always like, why does the federal government need to know that, I was afraid? They don't. It's a point. And if we look at if we have some time later on, I'm happy to show you where that information is coming from, why these questions are being asked this way. How did you respond? You all know what the response to this is, right? We dropped in covered.
No, we ran outside the building, Oliver.
Hope not. That was an ice cream truck. All right. Was it difficult to stand or walk? Let's in this case say no, it wasn't difficult to stand. And yes, we had slight swinging of the doors. Did you hear noises? Yes, for those of you who've experienced earthquakes, they're usually pretty noisy affairs, not just because everything in your place is shaking, but they have their own sound, and it's kind of crazy. Did objects rattle, topple, fall off the shelves? Let's say a few toppled and fell off. Did the pictures on walls move or get knocked? Yeah, but did not fall. Did any of the furniture and appliance side topple or become displaced? And again, this isn't a reflection on the appliances you buy. This is an appliance is a much heavier item than a picture, right? So if they start moving, the earthquake has much more energy. And were any of your heavy appliances affected? Well, sometimes the contents fall out. Let's say yes. And were any freestanding walls or fences damaged? And very often, yes, some are cracked. And then was any damage to the building? Most cases, you'd have to do a walk around your building to know that. Let's say hairline cracks in walls, right? And additional comments, anything else you want to say? We could say this is a demonstration for WaveTalkers. Right? For those of you who may see our LAX Northeast terms, we actually put in the term watermelon, and that helps us filter the information afterwards. If you're an exercise coordinator, having a term like that really helps filter afterwards. The reason we put in watermelon was that we had a fabulous exercise that was organized by Rob, K6OLI, who has unfortunately moved to Arizona. Unfortunately for us, he's very happy there. But part of that was that he, as an inject, had one of our hams go around from all the hospitals that we set up at the different parks with organs, right? But the organs were really wonderfully ice cold watermelon slices, right? So it was 105 degrees Fahrenheit, close to 40 degrees Celsius out there. And it was a hot day. We were all really, really hot. We were drinking like crazy. And then this organ delivery shows up with these watermelon slices, and it was just absolutely brilliant. So we're all happy. And that's why we use the term watermelon to identify the LAX Northeast traffic. Total tangent here. But all right. So everybody with us?
Hey, Oliver, in the past, when we first started doing this, we also included in the comments delivered via amateur radio and your call sign. Are we not doing that any longer, or are we still asking to include that?
You don't have to do that anymore. I'll show you in a moment why. But I'm all for saying, if you're sending via HF, gateway KN6BKT, for example, that would be absolutely great information to have. Also for USGS, right? But in this case, I can just say it via telnet because I'm not connected to the radio here, right? But good point there. But let me show you why you don't have to do that. But if you want to add it, by all means, go ahead and do that. Everybody with me so far? Anybody not there? Right, let's click submit. Now this is an estimate provided by Winlink, right? It is built on the engine for this that USGS has developed. In fact, that their programmer developed. So we're very confident in this, but this is not something provided by USGS. I just need to point that out, right? So this gives you some feedback. But you can see here, this is the official language. Felt by all, many frightened, some heavy furniture moved, a few instances of fallen damage and slight damage. So this would be intensity 6. That's what we're aiming for. Let's click on continue. And David, we're coming right back to your question here. All righty. In this case, in the CC, look in your chat. I added the information here. We'd like to first have you all add this information. A second. Right? So you've got the did you feel it at vccom.org, and that's wonderful because Ventura County sends you a great email back saying that they received your message. And that is, especially if you're organizing, coordinating, it's very empowering because USGS only takes the information in and then displays it on the map, but they're not saying these are the ham reports, it's with all the other reports, right? But this is a great way to get some data back. And David, here's the reason why you don't have to add your call sign anymore, because as the user ID, it is automatically added, right? The information in the from goes into your user ID, K6OLI in this case, call sign. All of you should have that information in your system. And it tells them this is a call sign. This is an amateur radio call sign. From their point of view, that actually increases, from USGS's point of view, that increases the confidence in the data because you're putting a good name to this data, right? So think about that. But everything we filled out is right here, right? The exercise ID, WaveTalkers. It says it's a Winlink exercise. So on the, it says as an event type, there's an exercise here, right? So all that information will be properly processed by USGS, and they don't have to guess what's going on. Are we clear on this? Did everybody have a chance to enter the CC? All right. Now let's post this to Outbox and make sure it's sent as Winlink message. And let's post this to Outbox. We've got one message in our Outbox here, right? And you may see there's another latitude, longitude here. That's a new Winlink feature. We can talk about that another time. But here's your JSON, and the JSON actually is the information that will go straight into the database in the USGS. So in that case, we'll click on Open Session. Now let's start at the beginning here. Here you select your session, right? Packet and Vara FM for 2 meters, 70 centimeters usually. Pactor and Vara HF usually for HF connections, right? Some people use RDOP, but by and large, those are the main parts. In this case, we'll use Telnet Winlink. That's our internet connection. I'll click on Open Session. And then we'll click on Start. And let's see what happens. There you go. We're getting some of these already in. So I received 6 messages, and let's see what happened to this. This comes to the local part. So we've just sent a message, and let me go back to this. Let's open this up, bring it back over. We sent it to Did You Feel It reports, automated usgs.gov. That was automatically filled in. And we manually added the Did You Feel It, vccom.org, and we'll get a confirmation from them. We added one for WaveTalkers, and in this case for LAX Northeast. And that could be anybody. That could be your local exercise coordinator. By all means, if you're having local exercises, please use that. The other thing that's important to point out about this right now is you don't have to wait for ShakeOut to do this. Ventura County has a weekly exercise, right, Chris? On yes. Did You Feel It? That yes. is absolutely brilliant, and that's perfectly okay to do that, to have your own exercises anytime you want to do that. Coordinate them with your own groups, with your neighbors. And that's really, really powerful. And USGS absolutely likes that, especially if you put in an exercise ID, because then they know this is all part of the same exercise. For the exercise on 1020, we're putting in ShakeOut 2022, as I pointed out, right? So let's do one more check. And let's
There's
see
a lot more that have come in.
Okay. Let's see what happens. We can map some, oh, holy buckets.
A little bit of the WaveTalkers effect. Thanks everybody for sending those in.
I really appreciate that. Alrighty. Alrighty, so we got 24 total, right? Let's show you as, let's say you're a coordinator for your group and you made sure everybody pushed the information to USGS. You found a path forward out of the area. In our case, what we do, we very often encourage our operators to send their traffic via VHF or Arden Mesh to a gateway that's connected via HF. That's a hybrid gateway. And so that gateway aggregates all these messages and every now and again connects and shoves all the information out at one time. Very effective. We find it's more efficient this way than everybody doing HF, right? Because there's limited circuit capacity. We're very mindful of circuit capacity. So that's what we've done. Let's go and actually look at the reports you sent. So if you, let's do this slowly. You go here to the little button that says form map and CSV file.
And just to be clear, the only reason this is going to work for Oliver is because you will have access to the LAX Northeast practical call sign. So just like at the end of the show, when we go through and we map everybody's check-ins, you have to receive the form. So I'll be able to check the WaveTalkers one. We've got Rob W6RH is on the call now. I think he can check the VCCom ones, and Oliver can check the ones that came into LAX Northeast.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Chris. And I just wanted to point that out. And again, this works because Chris has WaveTalkers, would work the exact same way on his computer right now. So that's really powerful. You can actually empower people around you, right? So in this case, you go to select form. We pick the Did You Feel It map. I like Google Terrain. That's just how I roll. And then we click on display map. And we have a lot of reports here, but I can actually adjust the filters. I can say only display reports in the last 4 hours, and we'll keep this. Let's change the orange to purple. We want to see everything that's a 6 or greater in purple. And then we click on save. And there you have it. Now I need to scroll out. Oops.
You are going to need to zoom out globally. See the entire world.
There you go.
Look at that. We've even got a pin down there in New Zealand.
Outstanding. And here's the beauty of it. I can click on that and I can find out, you know, here's Zulu Lima 1 Hotel Oscar Golf sent this report. And these were, he even put in the comment, this is a demonstration for WaveTalkers via Telnet. So all of that information is available to you with one click. And I know you've gone over this many times before, Chris, but I think this is really, really powerful information. At, you know, the press of a button, and we can take a look here. And I mean, I'm really happy to see how many are 6 or higher, right? And you can see the numeric modified Mercalli scale 6. We'll click on OK.
And so your color coding there is because you filtered on 6 or higher being purple, which means under 6 are the ones that are showing up in blue. So all of the pins on the map are all people who sent in for this exercise, but depending on how they filled out that form, it's color coding. So USGS can see where the radii of the intensity maps right from here. You can also do that locally within your own organization.
And that's a great point, Chris. And the other thing I want to point out at this juncture is it took no time for this to receive. That USGS would receive it once it hits the internet at the same speed you just saw it go through on Winlink. And that's truly, truly powerful. And the beauty of this is you don't have to do anything. All you need to do is send and receive. You don't have to click on anything. You click start and just do this and do, and, you know, keep checking, and everything is being added over and over and over again. So this is really, really powerful stuff. And that works, by the way, with all the different forms that are available to be mapped here, right? The humanitarian needs we haven't released yet. But, San Diego has a hospital status where it does this. The Winlink check-ins and checkouts that Chris demonstrates every week do this. We have a hospital facility status report, right? There are specific Hawaii forms that do that. General hospital bed availability, LAX forms. Those are available to you right away. And as I pointed out from this screen, and we're not going to go into detail, you can generate a CSV file. And that gives you the power to provide additional services to your served agency, to your community. We found out that the way we were doing the CSV files with our hospital bed availability in LA County was actually exactly the way that the county was doing it on their side with spreadsheets. So they could just take the information we generate on Winlink, paste it into their spreadsheets, and apply the exact same filters they applied during the pandemic to get an overview of what's going on if communications had been severed. So that was really empowering for us by using standard forms and working with our agency, listening to them. We're able to do that. And so again, what I would like to do, I'll stop my share here now. What I would like to do is encourage all of you to have a very simple exercise that people can participate in. This Thursday, call it ShakeOut 2022. Be part of this nationwide, of this international movement to participate in ShakeOut. You can really do no wrong with this. So we highly, highly recommend this. We have the Winlink Did You Feel It exercise that Chris has put in numerous times. Thank you so much for the exercise. We have a docs for coordinators. I have a write-up that I can pop in there too with an FAQ that makes it really easy to participate. So I really encourage everybody to do that. And I do want to point out, and if you go to the USGS earthquake website, right, they have a map. This information is global. So whether you send it in from New Zealand, it'll get mapped the same way. And that empowers your local communities as well. It's an additional point. And I do say this having experienced the Tohoku earthquake from the California side. And as you know, Japan has some of the best data collection available, but even there, the communications were disrupted and they were able to send their data over here for temporary storage. And we were able to, Tron's organization was able to send it back to them for further analysis after the earthquake after they have brought their servers and systems back up. So
Oliver, we got
international.
We got a couple of questions that have come in. One, KN6GLG is asking, is internet connection needed for mapping, or is map internal to Winlink Express?
Oh, great question, Troy. Thank you so much. The internet connection is only needed for you to download the tiles
of the map.
Exactly. So here's the thing. The more you use the map when you have the internet, the more it will be available when you don't have the internet, because the tiles are cached, which means they're saved on your computer. The more you move, the more you exercise with this and have the internet, those tiles, that resolution will be available when there's no internet. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So yeah, and there's a very simple emergency map, but it's not super helpful. So I would say the more exercises you do, the more power you'll have.
Another question that came in when you went in and you created a new message and you selected the template. We know that you went into the USGS. It's also located under the mapping GIS form, so the same category that we looked in this at the start of the show. But when you open up that USGS form, at the very top, there's a link there that says, click here to go to the USGS website if you have internet. From that location, you mentioned the ID of the event. How do you find the ID of a real event? And is there a way to use the website now that all of these WaveTalkers have submitted this? Is there a way that they could use the actual website to look at the map of what the USGS received. Did the USGS receive their check-in?
All right, that's several questions there. Let's go step by step. I appreciate that. Number one, the USGS doesn't map exercises as a regular, because it's just, they literally also manually look over the traffic. So they don't map exercises as an automated thing. That just doesn't happen, right? They did that for the first 3 exercises as a proof of concept, but even now, that's not, it doesn't show up on the website, right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
So the answer is they receive it. They're super appreciative, but you don't get any feedback back, right? They usually, if feedback comes to me, they usually tell me this is what we need to focus on. But the next question I can answer pretty easily. And that is, if you're going to, and I'll pop this information here, and that should be, oops, I don't have to have the whole thing, just the beginning here. That should be part of your favorites. Let me find the chat. So you can pull up this map, right? Let's say there's an earthquake happening up here, and let's say I live in this area, right? And I want to know, well, I want to send a report. It's a M2.8 in Mammoth Lakes. You can click on this, right? Or if you just click on it once, you can already see, oops. Let me move the bar here, the zoom bar to a different location. You can actually already see the exercise ID and the address up here, NC 73791 in the back there. Of course, I can open this link in a new tab, and that takes me to the event, right? And again, the same information is in the address up here, NC 737. You know, that's the I think that's the easiest way to find it. They received one did you feel it report. You can click on that, and you could fill out a did you feel it report. Or you could actually see that one person on the map. And they usually have some additional information here. What the there you go, NC 737-94591, right? It's always up there in the address. And the same thing here as an exercise. This is actually a whole lot of fun. We actually did this as an exercise where forced. Sometimes I feel sorry for our people, right? The things I make them do. But let's say this is a big one, right? We click on that. Where do we find the information? You know, it would be right up here, US. Again, we can open in a new link. This is the earthquake that we selected here, right? 6.3. And it'll show up here in the address again. That's going to be the ID. And again, we can do the same thing. Go to the, no, did you feel it for this? But go to any of these, and it usually has the information in there too. Also, if you subscribe to the warning service, they'll tell you the information there too. Does that make sense? And that's the, I think getting it from the address bar is the easiest way of finding it. Does that answer the question?
That does. Does anyone else have any questions? You go ahead and enter them to the into the chat. And we're also looking at the chat on the YouTube feed as well as the Facebook feed. So if you're in one of those audiences as well, and you've got a question for Oliver about this, go ahead and plug that in. We can ask him. And I do see we are at the top of the hour. So if there are no other questions, thanks so much, Oliver, for walking us through all of that information. That was really awesome. And a lot of Did You Feel It reports all just came in into the WaveTalkers account, and also into the VCCom and to the LAX Northeast. I see Francine has her hand up to ask a question. Let me go ahead and ask you to unmute here briefly and go ahead and ask a question.
Yes, I have the, you showed the picture from your station, that simulation to close to the event, but it looks like the picture you're somewhere on a roof. Is that an ideal situation to be on an earthquake?
Oh, she's asking about the picture you showed of the exercise there at Huntington, and it looked like you guys were on the roof. Is that the best place to be for an earthquake exercise?
That's a great question. I actually get that a lot. This is this particular location is on the 5th floor of the east parking structure, and that's the newest parking structure. So it's the most reinforced one. 2, I'd rather be on top of the roof than on the ground floor during an earthquake, because if it pancakes, at least you're on top, you're not in between. So if it sandwiches down, so that's one thing. And here's the real, for those of us, we're a group that supports hospitals. So great question there. The reality of it is, and we've seen that in exercises, as an amateur radio operator at a hospital, you're not going to be sitting at the EOC. They're going to send you where the triage is happening, because that's where they need the information. And that's always going to be the parking lots for us. It's just every single hospital we work with, it's going to be the parking lots. So practice from where you expect to do. It may not be that parking lot, maybe the north parking lot, I don't know, but we've usually practiced from different parking lots, making sure we can do the same thing. So train as you fight.
And I see Roland has he sent in a note here. I'm going to put a link in the chat for folks that are inside of the Zoom chat. There was an actual earthquake earlier this morning there in Germany, and he sent in the link. He has now sent in a "Did you feel it?" report for that from his location. So super excited about that. Hey, Oliver, thank you so much for coming and joining and walking us all through this. We really appreciate it. And really appreciate you coming and doing this. We will be excited to participate in the exercise on 1020 at 1020 local time. So it's pretty easy for everybody to be able to remember when that is. So thanks a lot for coming and joining us and walking us through that. Let's do a quick check of where we are right now. So let's go ahead and switch over to the PC laptop here and move myself down into the corner. I'm going to do one more quick check to check on the check-ins here. So I'll say start. It looks like I've obviously been checking all along as these Did You Feel It's came in. Let me go ahead and click on that real quick, and we'll bring up the map. And first, I'm going to go ahead and map up the Did You Feel It report, and we'll see how many have come in since Oliver initially sent and did the demonstration. Now, my filters are set right now, so I'm only filtering the last 4 hours. So that's going to be everybody who checked in, and I don't have any other filters set on this. I'll say okay, save, and we'll go ahead and zoom all the way out. If the demo gods are with me and my mouse starts working, come on, there we go. We'll go ahead and zoom all the way out to the global view. Again, when you're panning the map, you're going to right click and drag. We'll drag that over, and these are the Did You Feel It reports that came into the WaveTalkers account. So a whole bunch of them came in all over. Obviously, we also got Terry's Did You Feel It? We've got Bill out here in Hawaii, a whole cluster of them down here in Southern California, southwestern United States. A little cluster of them coming up here from the Pacific Northwest coming in, a few coming in from the upper Midwest here, and then all along the eastern side of North America, we got additional ones that came in as well. These are all, again, the Did You Feel It reports that came into the WaveTalkers account. So let me go ahead and close this window, and let's go ahead and check in on the check-ins and see how those came in. So I'm just going to change the drop down here. Instead of the DYFI map, I'm going to come down here to the Winlink check-in, and we'll go ahead and display that map. And I did want to start off, I've got my map for this one zoomed in to the Philippines, because there's a special thing going on in the Philippines. There's a group of hams there who have been watching this show and been collaborating with some other hams that are emergency communicators here in the Southern California region. And they've started setting up their own Winlink gateways, and they've got several of them that are now set up, and they're starting to be able to do exercises and support the area of the Philippines. So just an awesome story. I wanted to make sure that we could call those folks out for what they're doing. Let me go ahead and start zooming out here a little bit further, and we'll see where some of the other check-ins. Let me blow it out to full screen here, and we'll right click and drag over. And these are the check-ins that have come in to today's show. And we've got, again, Terry down there in New Zealand. Here's this cluster here in the Philippines, a few of those operators. And we've got Roland joining us from Germany, and then Bill out here in Hawaii. Let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit on the North America area. Right click and drag. This is always tricky on a surface. You got to have this like multiple fingers in order to be able to do this thing. And there we go, up here in Canada, Victor Echo 3 Yankee X-Ray joining us, a whole bunch of other folks joining us from all over North America. I'm just going to roll over a lot of these. I see there's Steve joining us from Tennessee, several more folks. I hope you're doing well down here in Florida, and you're recovering well from Hurricane Ian. As that's going on. There's John down there near Houston for us. Again, if you just click on it, it'll bring up their check-in information. And there's King joining us over there. We've got folks coming in from Iowa. It looks like South Dakota. That's very cool. Hey, thanks for joining us. And up here in the Pacific Northwest, several folks that are checking in up in that area. Our little cluster here in Northern California, that's up in that area, up in the Sierras. Some folks out here in Nevada, it's like all the way down, maybe even into Arizona a little bit. And folks all out here. Let me go ahead and zoom in a little bit on Southern California so we can see the folks that are coming in there, because there's a pretty good cluster that's down in that area that is joining us. Perfect. So thanks everyone for joining. If you find all this information helpful, we really do encourage you to go onto our YouTube page at youtube.com/WaveTalkers, and certainly like the content and subscribe to us there. We really appreciate all of that. And I'm being told that, oh yeah, there's Rob. Hey Rob, before we wrap up, Rob is the emergency coordinator here in Ventura County. Would you like to say a few words about did you feel it that we do here in Ventura County a little bit?
Hey, Chris and Oliver. Nice to see everybody here. Good crowd today. Yeah, we do a weekly drill just to keep people in practice. Not everybody does it every week, but it isn't formal. It can be done anytime, and it aggregates, not aggravates. And we pick it up every Tuesday at about 18:50 p.m. And then it's part of our net, and we report on what's received. We also do the same with Winlink check-ins every week. We just want people to practice, whether you do it by radio or telnet. It essentially works the same. So if somebody does not have a radio interface and isn't set up to do it at home, if they practice it and know how to run the software, if we put them at an EOC or some location that has a radio interface, the only difference is the drop down for different mode, and they can do Winlink, and it's the practice, because there's a number of steps, and you got to open Windows and send outbox and do all that. So if you've never done it and we have an earthquake and you're trying to send something, it's probably not going to be successful. So just simple practice, send the DYFI and get used to it. So it's not formal. Anybody is welcome to send from anywhere in the world to dyfi@vccom.org. And we'll get it and log it, and we'll know you checked in. You will get a notice too back that your check-in was accepted, so it worked. So and that happens within 10 minutes or so of your sending.
That's always such a really nice thing that when we get those responses back from DYFI@vccom.org, because it really lets you know, hey, I got my message in, I got my check-in form in, and it was successful. So anybody today on the call who sent in that DYFI and they included the DYFI@vccom.org should, if you check your Winlink messages again, you should get a response back from them as well.
Right, and that's something we heard about, that people send the DYFI to the USGS and they don't know if it was successful. So this at least lets you know your message got through to us, and if it got through to us, it probably got through to USGS.
So it's a great service that we do here in Ventura County. If you ever do send in an exercise through your own group, go ahead and include that VCCom address on there, and you should get that email confirmation back.
Yep.
Cool. Thank you very much, Rob,
Thanks,
for
guys.
being able to join us.
Sure.
And I did receive a confirmation from USGS as well.
Oh, you got one from USGS?
Yep.
Cool. We will.
Oh wait, I take that back. It's the VCCom one.
VCCom.
Okay.
Yeah, you got the D.
Yeah.
The DYFI.
I didn't read the description.
Yeah, so that's
My column was too narrow.
It's so awesome that we do that here in Ventura County. I know anytime I send in a report to USGS or any of the other exercises, I always include that DYFI@vccom.org, and then I get that confirmation back that that my message did go through. So it's a very cool that we're able to be able to do that. Again, if you find this helpful, we'd love for you to go onto our YouTube channel, like and subscribe to us there. If you really find this super helpful, then of course go on to WaveTalkers.com. There's a buy us a coffee link. You can help support us and help us keep all of these shows constantly going, and help support all the infrastructure that it takes to keep all this up and running. Hey, if you're inside of the Zoom call, hang around. We're going to do the after party. We'll unmute everybody's mics and allow you to open up and ask questions. And if you would like to join us in the Zoom calls, then go on to wavetalkers.com. Down at the bottom, there's a join us link, and we send out the link to the Zoom call every single week. So you're able to join us live in our audience here inside of the Zoom and participate in the after party. So until then, let me bring the guys up for a quick go around. And let me pin them back up here. So add spotlight. There's David, and I think I've got Dan on here. Here's Dan. We'll add him, and we're going to include Oliver, and we're going to include Rob in our little wrap up here. So let's start off with you, David. Do you want to any closing thoughts for us for today?
No, this is just it's a great way to give back to the community as an amateur radio operator, to be able to report what you felt or what you didn't feel. And as all the guys talked about today, it's about using the skills that you have such that when it's important, you can add to the community, knowledge. So practice, do it, and participate.
Dan, any closing thoughts from you? You're on mute, Dan.
Sorry.
That's
if you talk to emergency managers, they'll tell you that the most important thing in the early stages of a disaster is field reports. What's going on? Because if they don't know what's going on, they can't allocate their resources. And in an earthquake, unfortunately, the areas that are most impacted often are the ones that can't report because they don't have the infrastructure. So that's why amateur radio is considered so important, because most of us can operate without internet and without power. So these reports are important. And just because you're in an area that isn't prone to earthquakes, the same concept can work for all kinds of hazards. We just happen to have earthquakes as the one that we think about the most. And so you could develop something similar for hurricanes. Work with the local hurricane, the weather service people, and support them that way.
I think one of my good takeaways from this was in the early parts of Oliver's talk there. He was saying that as soon as the event happens, he goes out, and after he does a quick assessment of the area inside his apartment, he goes out and checks the apartment building. He checks the outside structure and does that quick walk around, does that quick assessment, and then goes on and sends in the form. So it's, regardless of what the disaster is, making sure that situational awareness that you have is really key. Hey, Rob, any closing thoughts from you for today?
No, I don't know if it was mentioned by Oliver or anyone earlier, but the one thing with the DYFI and a real earthquake is the goal is to do it within 1 hour. So if you can do it within an hour, I think USGS collects information for about an hour, and then we'll do a report. So time is somewhat of the essence, but if you can't do it in an hour, do it when you can.
And you're able to send that report via any means via Winlink possible. So if you've got internet, send it via Telnet. If you need to use Pactor or VARA, FM or HF or whatever, send it via any of those means, but just send it into them. Oliver, we'll give you the last word since you were so gracious. Thank you again for coming and doing this.
Well, first, I would like to thank the WaveTalkers and, of course, everybody who joined us today for being a fantastic audience. We really appreciate that. And I do want to leave you with that thought. Use ShakeOut to practice your communication skills by sending Did You Feel It via Winlink on 1020 at 1020 or afterwards if you want to. Again, this is one of the many features of Winlink, but it's about empowering yourself. It's about empowering your community and being stronger for all of our sakes. So thank you so much.
If you have additional questions about the ShakeOut, you can go to shakeout.org. And not only is there a wealth of information up there on that website, and it's all free and available for you to use. If you're an emergency coordinator and you're putting together an exercise, there's also media kits and other information that you can download from that website, shakeout.org. It's all free, and encouraged for you to go ahead and use that. So with that, I think we'll say 7-3 to everybody who is on the live streams. We'll go ahead and shut those down, and then we'll open up everything for the after party. So give me just a second to flip a few switches here. And 7-3, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us.
All right, so we're off